The twin suns of Zerion were dipping behind violet mountains, casting long shadows over the city of Lithera. The air shimmered with the soft glow of luminescent plants, and rivers reflected colors that no human eye could imagine. The Luminara, gentle and graceful beings with translucent skin and glowing eyes, moved through the streets with quiet purpose. Life had always been peaceful here, but a shadow loomed over their world. In the council hall, high above the city on floating terraces, a group of elders gathered around a glowing orb. The orb pulsed like a heartbeat, displaying images of the approaching threat. The Corvins, a merciless alien warband, had been spotted near the outer colonies. They were notorious in this sector of the galaxy, stripping planets of resources and leaving nothing but ashes. "Time is short," Elder Karen said, his voice trembling slightly. "If we do not act, our cities will burn, our people enslaved." Elder Lissa, the youngest of the council, pressed her delicate fingers to her temple. "We have tried sending messages, warning nearby allies, but none have answered. The Corvins are fast and they will reach Lithera in weeks, not months," the council murmured in worry. For generations, the Luminara had relied on intelligence, diplomacy, and community to survive. They had no warriors trained for the violence of interstellar war. Elder Karen's eyes shone with urgency. "Then we must call for help. There is one place that might answer: Earth. Humans are unpredictable, yes, but they have warriors. They have protected others before." Lissa's gaze lingered on the images of Corvin ships slicing through space like black predators. "I hope your faith is not misplaced. We cannot survive this threat alone." The council activated the Beacon of Guardians, a device capable of sending signals across thousands of light years. They encoded a message that explained their plight: a peaceful world facing a violent enemy, pleading for champions to come to their aid. It was a desperate call, meant for the most honorable and skilled beings in the galaxy. As the message left Zerion, shooting through the void at faster-than-light speed, the Luminara waited with a mixture of hope and fear. The children gathered by the windows, the elders by the orb, and all looked to the stars, imagining who would come to save them. Meanwhile, millions of light years away, Earth's Council of Space Affairs received the message. In a massive chamber filled with screens, maps, and data streams, humans of all shapes and colors debated the response. "Peacekeepers or specialists?" one council member asked. "We have soldiers trained for diplomacy and restraint, but the Corvins are violent beyond measure. Maybe they need something stronger." Another shook his head. "Stronger doesn't always mean better. We cannot just drop a bomb and call it protection." A third council member smiled thinly. "That is exactly what they need. They asked for guardians, and guardians we shall send. But the galaxy respects fear. Earth's demons are efficient and they do not hesitate. They are the perfect solution." The term demons carried weight across Earth's colonies. These were not mythological creatures but elite warriors trained from birth, conditioned to be unstoppable in combat. They were ruthless when needed, fearless and unmatched in battle strategy. Their reputation was so great that few dared oppose them, and even fewer survived encounters with them. Lisa's heart would have skipped if she knew. The humans of Earth, though capable of incredible compassion, often measured help in terms of power and results. The demons would not be gentle. When the demons prepared for departure, their ships were sleek, black, and foreboding. They glimmered under Earth's sun like shards of onyx, and their engines hummed with quiet menace. Inside the command vessel, the demons stood in formation, their faces calm, almost emotionless. Every movement precise, every gesture purposeful. Captain Valen, their leader, observed the preparations. He was tall, with dark eyes that seemed to pierce through space itself. "Remember," he said, "our mission is clear. Protect, destroy if necessary. We do not negotiate unless it serves the goal. They asked for guardians. That is what they will get." Unlike the council members who debated morality and diplomacy, Valen's team had no illusions about the outcome. The Luminara might fear them at first, but fear could be a useful tool. And if the Corvins dared attack, the demons would respond with full force, leaving no doubt about human dominance in combat. When the fleet left Earth orbit, the humans watching could feel a mixture of awe and dread. The demons moved like shadows across the stars, faster than anything the Luminara could imagine. Every second they drew closer to Zerion, and every second the Luminara's hope and fear intertwined like threads in a tapestry. Back on Zerion, The Luminara continued preparations. While they had no real warriors, they had ingenuity. They fortified cities with energy shields, trained engineers to operate defensive systems, and organized volunteers to assist in evacuation and medical care. They were ready to defend themselves as best they could, but the Corvins were known to overwhelm even the most prepared civilizations. Elder Karen walked through the city streets, observing the citizens. Children played among glowing plants, completely unaware of the ships that would soon blot out the sky. Merchants carried goods through busy marketplaces, and artists painted murals depicting their history. This was the life the elders wanted to protect. "Do you think they will come?" a young Luminara asked, her voice trembling as she looked up at the sky. "They will," Karen said softly. "But I do not know if they will be what we expect." Days passed, and the stars above Xerion seemed restless. Then one morning, the twin suns rose to reveal black silhouettes cutting through the sky. The fleet of demons had arrived. Their ships were silent, yet their presence was deafening. Citizens froze as the enormous vessels descended, casting shadows over the city like an eclipse. The Luminara gathered on the streets, their glowing eyes wide with awe and fear. These were not the shining heroes they had imagined. These were warriors forged in the fires of human ambition, their every movement precise, their every intention hidden behind calm faces. Elder Lissa stepped forward, attempting to greet them. "Welcome to Xerion. We are grateful for your assistance." Captain Valen looked at her for a moment, studying the small, luminous figure. "Gratitude is noted," he said, his voice low and steady. "But we are here to fight. If there is no enemy, we will prepare for one." The Luminara realized in that moment that their idea of guardians might not match Earth's idea. While the demons would protect them, it would be on their terms and through their methods. Within hours, the demons began their work. Fortifications rose like dark monuments. Energy fields hummed with power, and training drills for the Luminara volunteers began. The city's streets, once peaceful, now echoed with the sounds of preparation and the controlled intensity of warriors at work. Yet despite fear and confusion, the Luminara felt a spark of hope. If these humans could fight like this, perhaps their world could survive the Corvins. Perhaps the demons, terrifying as they were, could become the guardians they had prayed for. As night fell on Xerion, the twin moons rose, casting a silver glow over the city. The Corvins had not yet arrived, but the stage was set. Two very different species, bound together by necessity, were about to face a threat unlike any either had seen. And while the Luminara watched the black ships above, unaware of the full scale of the demon's nature, a quiet thought crossed Elder Karen's mind. They had asked for help, but perhaps they had asked the wrong humans. Yet there was no turning back. The beacon had been sent. The demons had arrived, and soon, Xerion's peaceful life would collide with the raw force of human power. The first chapter of this battle, the first moment of this uneasy alliance, had begun. The morning sun painted the violet mountains of Xerion in soft hues of gold and pink, but the calm of dawn was broken by a low hum that vibrated through the air. Citizens looked to the sky, their eyes widening in awe and fear. Black ships, taller than the tallest Xerion towers, descended from the stars like ominous sentinels. The demons had arrived, and their presence was unlike anything the Luminara had ever imagined. In the central plaza of Lithara, Elder Lissa gathered with other leaders, their faces pale but determined. They are enormous," she whispered, "and silent, as if they are watching every move we make." Elder Karen nodded gravely. "We must trust them for now. Their arrival may be our only chance to survive the Corvins, but we must be careful. We do not yet know their methods." The demons' ship settled on landing pads outside the city. Hatches opened with a hiss, revealing warriors in black form-fitting armor that reflected the sunlight like shards of obsidian. They moved with perfect coordination, each step measured, each gesture precise. There was no greeting, no ceremony, only silent power and control. Captain Valen led his team down the ramp, his tall figure cutting a commanding presence. His eyes scanned the plaza, assessing the city, the people, and the energy around them. "This is Xerion," he said, his voice calm but sharp. "We are here to protect it. Do not interfere with our work unless instructed." The Luminara stared at him, their glowing eyes wide with a mixture of fear and admiration. These were not the gentle heroes they had imagined. These were warriors bred for efficiency, trained to dominate the battlefield. And yet, there was a strange beauty in their movements, every motion fluid, purposeful, and disciplined. Lissa stepped forward, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "Welcome, Guardians. We are grateful for your presence. Our people," Valen cut her off with a single hand gesture. "We do not negotiate peace until the enemy arrives. We prepare. That is all." The Luminara exchanged nervous glances. They had expected protectors, yes, but these humans operated on rules they could barely understand. Still, the Council allowed them to continue, hoping their strange methods would indeed save the planet. Within hours, the demons began transforming the city. Energy shields rose along the borders, glimmering blue and gold as they interfaced with Xerion's native technology. Defensive turrets were installed at strategic points, and the demons drilled the volunteers in precise combat maneuvers. The Luminara tried to adapt, but the pace was overwhelming. Every day felt like a test, every movement judged and corrected with cold efficiency. Young Luminara volunteers stumbled as they tried to mimic the demons' training, and yet by the third day, even their most awkward movements began to resemble the warriors' perfect precision. The demons were harsh yet not cruel. They demanded excellence and they tolerated nothing less. Elira, a young and curious Luminara, watched the training with fascination. She had always admired humans from afar, hearing stories of their courage, intelligence, and adaptability. But seeing them now up close was terrifying. Their power was breathtaking, their focus absolute. And beneath it all, there was a dangerous edge, an unspoken warning that these beings were capable of immense destruction if provoked. "This is incredible," she whispered to a friend. "They move like they are part of the air itself, part of the city. I have never seen anything like it," her friend shivered. "And yet, I am afraid. They do not smile, they do not laugh. What if they turn against us by mistake?" Before Elira could respond, a warning signal blared across the city. Outside the energy shields, dark shapes moved in space. The first Corvin scouts had arrived. Sleek and spiked, their ships exuded menace, radiating aggression as they descended toward the city. Captain Valen activated a holographic map of the battlefield. "Scouts," he said. "We engage immediately." No hesitation. Civilians remain within the shields, all demons to positions. The demons moved like liquid shadow across the city, taking positions in minutes that would have taken Xerion's best engineers hours to calculate. Energy turrets powered up and force fields shimmered with protective light. Yet the Luminara could only watch, awestruck and fearful, as the humans prepared for combat with cold precision. The Corvins struck with sudden fury. Their ships fired beams of bright energy, tearing through the outer defenses and sending shockwaves across the plains. Panic swept through the city as the Luminara scrambled to remain within the shields. Then the demons struck. They moved through the city streets with impossible speed, deploying portable energy disruptors that disabled Corvin ships mid-flight. Smaller squads infiltrated Corvin ground forces, neutralizing them before they could reach the city. The Luminara watched in shock as enemies fell with uncanny precision, often without a single demon being harmed. Elira could hardly believe her eyes. They are unstoppable," she murmured. Every Corvin strike was met with a counter almost before it happened. Every ambush was anticipated. And yet amid all this destruction there was method. Nothing was wasted, nothing was careless, still the cost was evident. Portions of the city, particularly near the outer walls, were damaged by stray energy blasts. Buildings that had stood for centuries were scarred, streets cratered, and the air was filled with the smell of ozone and scorched metal. The Luminara winced at the destruction, even as they recognized that without the demons, their losses would have been total. After hours of relentless battle, the Corvins retreated, leaving the city heavily defended but scarred. The Luminara rushed into the streets, tending to the wounded and assessing the damage. They had survived, but the victory felt strange, thrilling, terrifying, and almost alien. Elira approached Captain Valen cautiously. "You have saved our city," she said softly, "but much of it is destroyed. Can this be your way of protecting?" Valen looked at her, his expression unreadable. "This is how we ensure survival. The enemy must fear us more than we fear them. Destruction is sometimes unavoidable, We eliminate threats before they can harm those we protect. Elira nodded slowly, though unease churned in her stomach. These humans were guardians, yes, but their idea of protection was not gentle. It was absolute, and it carried a weight the Luminara had never known. As the sun set over the damaged city, the Luminara gathered again in the plaza. The citizens whispered in awe and fear about the demons, unsure whether to admire or dread their presence. Elder Karen placed a hand on Elira's shoulder. "They have the power to protect us," he said quietly. "But their ways are not our ways. We must learn from them, adapt, and remain vigilant. The Corvins are still out there. This is only the beginning." Above the city, the black ships of the demons glinted under the fading sunlight. They did not celebrate their victory, nor did they rest. Their focus was already on the next threat, scanning the stars, calculating possibilities, preparing for the battles yet to come. Elira watched them from the plaza, her heart a mixture of admiration and unease. Humans were powerful, perhaps more powerful than any being she had ever known. But power without understanding, she thought, could be as dangerous as the enemy itself. Night fell, and the city of Lithera was quiet except for the hum of energy shields and the distant movements of the demons' patrols. Fires from the battle still burned at the edges of the city, casting long shadows across the streets. Yet even amid destruction, the Luminara felt a glimmer of hope. They had called for guardians, and guardians had arrived. But these were not the heroes they had imagined. The Corvins would return. And when they did, the Luminara would need to stand beside the demons, learning their ways, adapting to their methods, and finding the courage to face a threat unlike any before. And as the twin moons rose over the Violet Mountains, the first chapter of Zirion's fight had ended, leaving both fear and awe in its wake. The demons had proven their might, and the Luminara had begun to understand the cost and the power of true guardians. The war for Zirion had only just begun, and the city slept uneasily, knowing that the true test of humans and their terrifying guardians was still ahead. Days passed since the first encounter with the Corvin scouts, but Zirion was far from peaceful. The city bore scars of battle, craters in streets, scorched buildings, and bent energy pylons. But its people worked tirelessly to repair what they could. The Luminara were grateful for the demons' protection, yet unease lingered like a shadow over their once peaceful streets. Elira walked among the volunteers training under the demons' guidance. Each human movement was precise and fluid, almost like a dance. The demons corrected every mistake without anger, yet their stern expressions and intense focus made the Luminara feel small, inexperienced, and sometimes even foolish. A young Luminara, Nira, stumbled while lifting a small energy shield under the guidance of a demon named Kale. "Careful!" Kale barked, his voice low and controlled. "Adjust your grip. Efficiency matters. Hesitation costs lives." Nira's eyes welled with tears, but she nodded, trying again. I'm trying," she whispered. Kale's expression softened just slightly. "Then you learn. That is all." Elira realized that while the demons were harsh, they were also teaching in ways the Luminara had never imagined. Precision, discipline, focus. These were not lessons about weapons alone, but lessons about survival. Yet their methods were alien, uncomfortable, and frightening to the gentle Luminara. That evening, Elder Karen called a council meeting. "The demons have saved us, yes," he said, pacing before the glowing orb. "But their approach is different from ours. They see the world in terms of threats, control, and efficiency. We see the world in terms of life, beauty, and balance. How do we reconcile these differences?" Lisa frowned, tapping her fingers on the table. "We must adapt, or we risk misunderstanding them. They protect us, but not in the way we expect. They might harm things we hold dear, and yet they are our only hope against the Corvins." Karen nodded. "We must find a way to communicate, to guide them without angering them. We cannot assume their methods are wrong, only different." Meanwhile, the demons continued their preparations. Captain Valen oversaw patrols, weapon placements, and strategic drills with near-obsessive intensity. Every Corvin fleet movement was analyzed, every possible approach predicted. Elira approached Valen one morning, her heart pounding. "Captain," she said softly, "we are grateful for your protection, but we wish to understand your methods. Our ways are different. Perhaps we can work together instead of just watching?" Valen studied her, his piercing eyes assessing her determination. "Understanding comes from experience, not discussion. he replied. You wish to learn? Then train, adapt, survive. Elira's stomach sank. There was no warmth in his words, no reassurance. And yet she felt a spark of determination. If the Luminara were to survive, they would have to learn from the humans, absorb their efficiency while keeping their own values intact. Over the next few days, the cultural clash became more pronounced. The demons moved through the city with a cold, silent purpose, dismantling obstacles the Luminara had once considered essential. Gardens were leveled to create open lines of sight for defense. Streets were redirected to allow rapid troop movement. Energy shields blocked entire city blocks, changing how sunlight fell and disrupting daily life. Some Luminara protested quietly. These gardens are sacred, one elder said. We cannot destroy them, Kale responded without turning. Sacred or not, they cannot protect you from death. We prioritize survival, that is all. The Luminara realized that survival and tradition were no longer always compatible. The demons did not intend to disrespect them, but their worldview left little room for compromise. Even daily routines were affected. Citizens had to adjust to the constant presence of humans who moved like shadows, correcting mistakes and enforcing discipline. Meals were scheduled around drills. Children were taught safety protocols that bordered on military precision. The Luminara had never known life to be this regimented, and yet slowly, they began to see its purpose. Elira became a bridge between the two cultures. She trained tirelessly under the demons, absorbing their techniques while also explaining to them the importance of Zarian's culture and values. She would stop a demon from flattening a historical structure or rerouting energy in a sacred area, carefully negotiating a compromise. One afternoon, she confronted Captain Valen. If we do not protect our heritage, what are we saving? We may survive, but our world will no longer be ours. Valen paused, his gaze distant. Heritage does not stop a fleet from destroying your city. Life comes first, but perhaps there is room for compromise if it does not jeopardize survival. It was the first hint of flexibility from the demons. Elira felt a cautious hope. Maybe these humans, fearsome as they were, could learn to respect life beyond the battlefield. The Corvins, however, were not idle. Scouts continued to probe the outer planets, and rumors of a larger fleet reached the demons. Captain Valen's team prepared for the inevitable assault. Every day the drills grew more intense, the strategies more intricate. The Luminara, working alongside them, began to see the value of human methods. They were fast, precise, and often ruthless, but effective. One evening, Elira observed Kale instructing a group of young Luminara. He moved silently among them, correcting postures, adjusting grip, and demonstrating techniques that seemed impossible to mimic. A Luminara youngling fell repeatedly, frustration on her face. Kale's voice was calm but firm. Fall 7 times. Stand 8. That is survival. The words resonated with Elira. They were harsh, yes, but true. Life demanded resilience, adaptability, and courage. Perhaps the demons' ways were not wrong. They were simply different tools for survival in a violent galaxy. Tension between the species occasionally boiled over. The Luminara valued compassion, patience, and dialogue. The demons valued efficiency, anticipation, and action. Arguments flared when the demons suggested demolishing certain buildings to create better defensive lines, or when Luminara insisted on preserving their sacred gardens and monuments. Elder Karen watched these interactions with careful concern. We cannot let fear or pride divide us, he reminded the council. If we are to survive, we must blend our wisdom with their strength. We must learn to speak 2 languages, the language of peace and the language of war. By the end of the 3rd week, small victories began to show. Luminara volunteers learned to operate energy shields with precision. Engineers adapted the demons' drills to improve city defenses without destroying cultural sites. Citizens moved with newfound awareness, anticipating potential threats. The demons, in turn, began to notice the Luminara's creativity and adaptability. Their problem-solving skills, empathy, and ingenuity were not weaknesses, they were assets. Valen observed with a keen eye as the Luminara suggested defensive strategies that humans had not considered. Some of these ideas were incorporated into the city's defenses. It was a slow, uneasy partnership. Mutual respect was tentative, but it was growing. Elira felt a cautious optimism. Humans were formidable, yes, but they were also capable of learning from others. Perhaps, she thought, this uneasy alliance could evolve into something stronger. something that could protect Zarion without erasing its soul. Night fell over the city, and the twin moons cast their silver glow across streets lined with energy shields and battle-ready warriors. The air was filled with quiet hums of human patrols and Luminara volunteers preparing for the next day's drills. Despite the scars of recent battles, the city felt alive, resilient, and ready. Elira stood atop a small tower looking toward the stars. Somewhere out there, the Corvins were gathering strength, preparing for the next wave of attacks. She thought of the demons, terrifying, disciplined, and powerful. She thought of the Luminara, gentle, creative, and resilient. And she realized that survival would depend not on either alone, but on the union of their strengths, the blending of cultures, and the willingness to learn from one another. As the night deepened, a quiet thought echoed in her mind. The demons were not what she had expected. They were more. They were both fearsome and capable of growth. And perhaps together they could face the darkness that was coming. The first true test of collaboration had begun, not against the Corvins, but against the challenge of understanding each other. And for Elira, for the Luminara, and for the demons, that challenge was just as vital as any battle. The twin suns rose over Zarion, casting long golden light over the city of Lithera. Though the scars of battle remained, the Luminara had grown accustomed to the demons' presence. Black ships patrolled the skies. Energy shields glimmered along streets, and human warriors drilled in the plazas with relentless focus. The Luminara now moved alongside them, learning, adapting, and sometimes struggling to keep pace. Elira had never been busier. She trained alongside the demons each morning, learning combat strategies, energy shield control, and tactical coordination. Each night she returned to council meetings, reporting on the progress, discussing strategy, and trying to bridge the gap between human discipline and Luminara compassion. But a warning signal shattered the calm that morning. The Corvins were returning, and this time they were not scouts. Hundreds of ships, massive and dark, swept across the sky like a swarm of predatory stars. Their engines roared, shaking the atmosphere. It was the full force of the Corvin fleet, coming to conquer Zarion. Captain Valen activated his command console. His team moved with mechanical precision, preparing defenses and coordinating squads across the city. "This is it," he said to Elira, who stood nearby. "This will test everything you have learned. Remember, hesitation costs lives. Trust in training." The Luminara volunteers tightened grips on energy shields, hearts pounding. For many, this was the first real battle they would face. For the demons, it was routine, but the stakes were higher than any had seen before. The Corvins attacked swiftly. Energy beams lanced through the sky, striking outer defenses and creating shockwaves that rattled buildings. The demons moved like shadows among the chaos, deploying portable shields, neutralizing enemy ships, and guiding Luminara volunteers through dangerous zones. Every movement was calculated, every strike deadly. Elira ran beside Kale, moving a squad of young Luminara through a damaged plaza. "Stay behind the shield," she shouted. "Follow my lead." Kale observed silently, correcting minor mistakes but letting the Luminara make their own decisions when safe. The humans were strict, but had begun to trust the Luminara's instincts, adjusting their own tactics when necessary. Elira felt a surge of pride. The lessons were paying off. The Corvins pressed their attack. Swarms of small ships darted toward the city, while massive capital vessels loomed overhead, ready to fire devastating energy bursts. Valen issued commands with cold efficiency. Demons intercepted attackers with surgical precision, while Luminara volunteers created support zones, redirecting stray blasts and evacuating injured citizens. Amid the chaos, Elira noticed a Corvin strike team approaching a residential area. Civilians were trapped, and the shields alone could not hold. "Kale, we need to protect them," she yelled. Kale nodded, and together they led a squad into the fray. The demons moved with terrifying speed, neutralizing Corvin attackers before they could reach the buildings. Elira guided Luminara volunteers, showing them how to anticipate enemy movements and protect civilians. For the first time, the Luminara realized something profound. These humans were not monsters. They were trained to see every possibility, to react before a threat could strike, and to survive in the most extreme conditions. Their methods were harsh, yes, and often frightening, but they were effective. Hours passed and the battle raged. Energy beams tore through the sky, Buildings shook under the force of attacks, and screams of determination and fear echoed across the city. Yet the demons and Luminara fought side by side, creating a seamless defense. It was terrifying, it was exhausting, and it was unlike anything the Luminara had ever imagined. In a brief lull, Elira caught her breath atop a damaged tower, looking down at the city. Fires burned along the outskirts, and citizens were tending to the injured with trembling hands. But the combined defense of humans and Luminara had held the Corvins at bay. For the first time, the city felt like it might survive. Valen joined her silently. "You and your people have done well," he said. His voice, usually cold and commanding, held a faint note of acknowledgement. "You are learning quickly. Adaptation is key. Your survival depends on it." Elira nodded, realizing that the demons were not indifferent to the Luminara. They simply measured value differently. Life to them was about efficiency, preparation, and results. Compassion existed, yes, but it was expressed through action, not words. The Corvins regrouped, launching a massive strike at the city's energy shields. Captain Valen ordered the deployment of the demons' heaviest weapons. Massive energy disruptors tore through enemy ships, while mobile combat squads intercepted attackers on the ground. Elira ran alongside a group of Luminara volunteers, directing them to move wounded civilians to safety. A Corvin ship fired a beam directly at them, and Kale reacted instantly, raising a shield just in time to block the strike. Sparks flew and Elira's heart raced. "This is survival," Kale said calmly. "Not glory. Not pride. Survival." The words sank in. The Luminara realized that the demons' fearsome reputation was not just legend. It was a product of their training, their discipline, and their unwavering focus on protecting life in the harshest ways. As the battle reached its climax, Elira spotted the Corvin commander coordinating the assault. He was massive, armored in black like the demons, with weapons capable of obliterating entire blocks. "We cannot let him reach the city," she shouted. Valen assessed the situation quickly. "Elira, Kale, lead a strike team. Target the commander, precision, speed, eliminate the threat." Elira nodded, feeling both fear and determination. The Luminara squad moved like shadows, supported by demons who covered their flanks and guided their attacks. Every strike counted. Every move was calculated. They reached the commander's position, dodging energy beams and collapsing debris. Elira raised her energy disruptor and fired, disabling part of the commander's armor. Kale moved in, striking with deadly precision. The Corvin commander fell, and with him, the coordinated attack of the fleet began to falter. The remaining Corvin ships, seeing their leader defeated, retreated into space. Cheers erupted across the city. Though the demons did not celebrate, their focus was already on scanning for remaining threats, assessing damage, and preparing for the next wave. Elira stood among her people, exhausted but elated. For the first time, she saw the humans not as monsters or demons, but as guardians shaped by discipline, training, and experience. Their methods were harsh, their appearance intimidating, but their purpose was clear: survival, protection, and victory. That night, the city gathered in the central plaza. Fires burned at safe distances, lighting up the faces of citizens who were tired, scared, and grateful. Elder Karen spoke, his voice echoing over the crowd. "We have survived this day not by chance, but by working together. The demons have shown us their ways and we have learned, but this is only the beginning. We must continue to adapt, to learn, and to grow stronger." Elira watched Valen and Kale among their team. For the first time, she saw a flicker of something almost human in them, a recognition of achievement, a quiet acknowledgement of collaboration. Perhaps she thought these warriors were capable of change, just as much as the Luminara were capable of learning. The twin moons rose over the city, casting a silver glow over the black ships and the repaired streets. Fires from the battle still burned at the outskirts, but the city stood resilient. The Luminara had faced death and emerged alive, guided by humans who were terrifying and awe-inspiring in equal measure. As Elira looked toward the stars, she realized that survival would require more than courage. It would require understanding, collaboration, and the willingness to accept the lessons of beings unlike themselves. The demons were not just protectors, they were teachers, harsh as they were, and their presence would shape Zarian's future in ways the Luminara had never imagined. The Corvins had been defeated, for now. But the larger war loomed ahead, and Xerion's fate would depend on the alliance between its gentle, creative people and the humans who were both terrifying and capable of greatness. And as the city slept uneasily that night, Elira understood the truth. Humanity's power was not just in their weapons or their training. It was in their ability to survive, to adapt, and to confront the harshest realities without faltering. That was a lesson the Luminara would carry forever. The morning after the battle, Xerion's city of Lithera was quiet but not peaceful. Fires smoldered at the edges of the city, streets were scarred, and buildings still bore the marks of energy blasts. Yet amidst the destruction, the people moved with a sense of purpose. The Luminara had survived, not just through hope, but through the lessons they had learned from humans, the demons who had arrived as terrifying strangers but now stood beside them as protectors. Elira walked through the city, observing volunteers tending to the wounded and repairing damaged energy grids. The demons moved alongside them, still disciplined, still precise, yet their actions now carried a subtle recognition of the Luminara's culture. They repaired what could be repaired, guided young Luminara through difficult tasks, and even allowed small moments of levity. Kale approached her, his expression serious, but calm. "You have done well, Elira. Your people adapted quickly. You learned fast under pressure." Elira smiled faintly, though exhaustion weighed on her. "We survived because you taught us. But it is more than that. You helped us see our own strength. We learned from each other." Kyle considered this silently. It was the first time Elira had sensed a glimmer of reflection in him. A recognition that perhaps guardianship meant more than just raw power. It meant guidance, restraint, and understanding. Captain Valen stood atop a repaired tower, observing the city below. The battle had been won, but he knew the Corvins were still out there regrouping and likely planning another strike. Yet for the first time he considered the human concept of partnership. Perhaps there was value in teaching, in cooperation, in forming bonds with those one protected. The Luminara were not soldiers. They were survivors, thinkers, and dreamers, and together, their abilities complemented the demon's strength. Elira gathered a small group of volunteers, including young warriors and engineers. "We must rebuild wisely," she said. "We cannot simply restore what was lost. We must adapt, combining our knowledge with what we have learned from the demons. Our city can be stronger, more resilient, and still beautiful." The Luminara nodded, inspired. They had faced death and destruction and survived, not through strength alone, but through courage, adaptability, and cooperation. Over the next few days, the rebuilding effort became a lesson in collaboration. Demons taught precise energy grid placement and structural reinforcement techniques. Luminara volunteers incorporated natural aesthetics, preserving gardens and cultural monuments while ensuring they were safe from future attacks. Streets were redesigned to allow for rapid movement in emergencies, blending efficiency with the city's unique beauty. Elder Karen watched the work from a high terrace, his eyes thoughtful. "We called for guardians," he said to Lissa, "but we received teachers as well. They came as terrifying warriors, but they remain and they learn. Perhaps this is what true guardianship means. Strength guided by wisdom." Lysa smiled, watching Elira direct a team of Luminara engineers while a demon supervised quietly in the background. "It is more than protection. It is partnership, and it may define the future of our people." That evening, as the twin moons rose over Lithra, the sky was filled with the soft hum of black ships and energy fields. The demons patrolled silently, as always, yet there was a subtle difference. Their presence no longer inspired fear alone, it inspired confidence. The Luminara could see that humans, even in their most disciplined and terrifying forms, were capable of learning, adapting, and showing restraint. Elira approached Valen, who stood alone atop a high tower gazing at the horizon. "Captain," she said softly, "you could leave now. Your mission is complete. Why stay?" Valen's eyes reflected the glow of the twin moons. "Because protection is more than defeating enemies. Guardianship requires understanding, guidance, and sometimes change. Your people have shown us that survival is not enough. Life, culture, and hope must also be preserved. I want to learn this balance just as you have learned our methods." Elira's heart swelled with hope. The humans who had arrived as monsters, feared by many across the galaxy, were now beginning to embody the true meaning of guardianship. Courage tempered with wisdom, strength paired with care. As days turned into weeks, Zerion's city flourished. Energy shields blended with luminescent gardens. Streets were fortified yet still beautiful. Citizens moved with confidence, knowing that they had learned skills that could protect them, while humans worked beside them, adapting their methods to respect life and culture. The Luminara had also begun to understand the human capacity for resilience. Their determination, discipline, and willingness to act decisively under pressure had saved lives when hesitation could have meant death. The demons' harsh ways had taught the Luminara to think faster, act smarter, and value both preparation and adaptability. One evening, Elira stood on a hill overlooking the city. Fires from the previous battle were gone, replaced by glowing gardens, restored buildings, and the quiet hum of energy systems. Beside her, Kale and several other demons watched in silence. "You have grown stronger," Kale said, "not just in skill but in understanding. Your people are capable of things I did not expect." Elira smiled. "And you have grown too. Guardians are not just warriors, they are teachers, protectors, and guides. I hope you will stay to continue learning with us." Kale inclined his head. "Perhaps we will. There is value in your ways, and perhaps through this partnership both our peoples can thrive." At the city's edge, the stars shimmered with distant threats. The Corvins had not vanished from the galaxy, but Zerion was no longer an easy target. The Luminara had allies they had never imagined, and humans who were fearsome yet capable of growth stood beside them. Together they were stronger, smarter, and ready for whatever came next. Elder Karen gathered the citizens in the central plaza. "We have faced death, fear, and destruction," he said, his voice carrying across the city. "But we have also faced ourselves, our doubts, our limits, and our fears. And we have survived. We have learned that guardianship is not a simple thing. It is not just strength or courage or technology. It is all of these guided by wisdom, understanding, and compassion. Today, Zerion stands stronger than ever." The crowd cheered, not just for survival, but for growth, resilience, and hope. The demons standing among the citizens did not cheer. Yet in their silent way, they acknowledged the truth of Karen's words. Guardianship was more than raw power. It was about protecting life and teaching others to survive and thrive. Elira walked through the plaza, observing the interactions between Luminara and demons. Children played under the watchful eyes of humans who had once been terrifying strangers. Volunteers repaired energy systems with guidance from both species. The city was alive, resilient, and united in ways that neither humans nor Luminara could have achieved alone. That night, as the twin moons rose over Zerion, Elira stood atop the rebuilt central tower, looking at the horizon. Stars glimmered like distant promises, and somewhere among them the Corvins would regroup. But Zerion would be ready. Its people had grown, adapted, and learned from humans who had arrived as fearsome strangers, and remained as teachers, protectors, and friends. Captain Valen and Kale joined her silently. "We have done more than protect," Valen said quietly. "We have learned, and perhaps one day, humans will be remembered not just for their strength, but for their wisdom, restraint, and ability to guide others." Elira nodded, feeling the weight of what had been achieved. Humanity had shown both its terrifying power and its potential for growth. The demons were no longer just warriors. They were guardians reborn, capable of protecting life while learning the value of compassion, culture, and partnership. As the city of Lithera slept under protective energy shields, the twin moons casting silver light over glowing gardens and restored streets, Elira felt a deep sense of hope. Zerion had survived, not just because humans had arrived, but because both species had learned from each other. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the stars twinkled like silent witnesses to a new era, an era where humans, once feared across galaxies, could embody the very best of themselves, strength guided by wisdom, fear tempered by understanding, and power used to protect. Rather than destroy, Zerion had been saved. The demons had become true guardians, and the story of courage, growth, and alliance would echo across the stars for generations to come.